but there's, you hear everyone talking about planning for coding agents. And when a new coding model comes out, they'll be like, oh, this one can run for 8 hours unattended. And when I heard that, I'm like, how would you possibly keep an agent on task for 8 hours? Well, what OpenAI did is they have this planning document called plans.md. They call them exec plans. But the idea, it's a really long document. Just look up plans.md. But this is what OpenAI uses internally to, you kind of discuss what task you want, and then you say, make a plan from it. And you point to this file. And it'll generate this awesome planning document. And that's kind of been the backbone of how I'm building everything I'm building. I'll just dictate to Codex and kind of talk with it, and I'll say make a plan, and that's been really useful. So I'm gonna make a really basic one. I just tested a prompt. I said build Tetris just to see what happened. I'm gonna say look at Tetris. Create a plan to make a basic version of Tetris in the browser. And I'm going to do exec plan create. That's my plan. If you haven't used skills before, $ skill name. I put it on low because it's probably an easy task. I tried this earlier, but we're going to compare what happens here. So yeah, when you invoke, this is a terrible way to, I'm kind of showing what not to do first, but to show you that it actually will make a pretty comprehensive plan from it. It's going a little bit slow. It might take a second, so I'm going to flip to, I think I have a plan here. This is a plan from an iOS app I'm working on. Basically, it's kind of like a fact-checking app, so you can just turn it on and listen to you, and it'll just tell you when you're bullshitting. But every exec plan has, I know you're not going to be able to read this whole thing, but the structure is really similar. It'll create these kind of like a big picture purpose, progress items, surprise discoveries, decisions it makes. So the idea is through compactions inside of Codex, when the LLM is it can't see it's everything it's done, it'll just look at, actually even without compaction, this should pretty much be able to work because it's so comprehensive that it's giving you just an awesome plan. And it's kind of anyone who's a software engineer could pick this up and continue working from where you are. Let's see, it might take a minute, even with GPT low. You know what it would be interesting? Yeah, I guess we'll just see how the Tetris plan comes out. But what I've changed in my recent development process is instead of just describing what I want, make me Tetris in the browser, and then say create a plan, I've found it's a lot better to have, oh good, we have a plan. This is a cool new thing in the Codex app. It'll just show you files. So who knows? I don't know if this is the best way to build Tetris. I'm not going to take the time to figure it out. But what I would do better next time is I would say, instead of creating the plan right away, I think for some reason when you edit, you can't go and do a new skill. So this time I'm going to say, grill me. I don't know if any of you guys, I forgot who came up with this, but basically the idea is you could say, go make a plan, but really what you should be doing is having the AI ask you questions and really clarify what your intent is. Because that's the last thing we have as humans. We have ability to make decisions. The AI can do the execution, but if you give it nothing to execute on, it'll build something. It's really good at building something and spending tokens and charging you money. But really, the idea with this grill me plan, or grill me skill, is that it will basically keep asking you questions until it's fully clear about what you want, and then you can go create a plan from that. So with this exec plan, I'll go back to it. So this is sort of, wrong one. Here we go. It's still creating the plan. Wait. Oh no, this is the one. Cool. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you if I'm vibe coding, like it's not super important. This is what I do, and I think it's just cool if you haven't seen it before. So after creating a plan, which I would have it grill me first and give it a lot more information. Maybe it's like, I want the blocks to be this colors, or I want a certain scoring system, something like that. Like, if you don't tell the AI what you want, it's just going to build what it thinks. And it's a lot better to spend the energy and tokens before to clarify exactly what you want before going off and having it create it. Because then you have 5,000 lines of code and you have to tell it to fix all these things. So what I almost always do, at least once after creating a plan, is I have a skill called improve plan. So I'll run a couple improvement passes, maybe 3. There's obviously diminishing returns, but the improve skill it's a really long skill, like a lot of skills, but it's basically looking at your existing plan, making sure it's looking at the right files and dependencies, making sure libraries are installed, just kind of double checking everything and improving the plan. So I find that a couple of these will improve the quality of the plan before actually implementing it. And then I have one called implement plan, and then I have one called review recent work. So it refers back to the original plan and just kind of audits its implementation. I'll sometimes do a few of these, then I can go watch a movie. And so what I've done, I really love this idea of chaining skills, because what it allows you to do is, like, once you have your original idea, in this case, I'm building something from scratch completely, but it might be something like finding a subtle bug. And maybe the code changes for fixing this are only 50 lines of code or something. But if you have this plan, I think Codex is going to get smart enough eventually to where you don't need to have all this scaffolding, and I think there's probably a lot of effort people are putting into this that will eventually go away by smarter models. But at least for the time being, planning really helps get your code where you want it. We just finished the first improvement pass of this. I know it's probably really small. What this both the improve plan and the improve skill and the review recent work skill do, is at the end of it, this is just a convention I made up, which is to return a usefulness score. Like, did this improvement actually improve the plan, and evaluate itself? And so this one, it was 7 out of 10. If you do it 10 times, it might be like 7, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. And then basically I say, when the improved plan is executed, check the previous improvement pass, and if it was 3 or less, just return the word skip. And it also says, if the previous word was skip, say skip again. So you could put 25 improvements if you want, but if it's a 3 or less, or it says skip, it'll just skip. So that's one sort of convention I've created. And similarly with the review recent work, it does the same thing. So after you've made an implementation, I'll do review recent work. And if it's important, I might do it like 15 times just to I'll just do it a bunch of times. Why not? As long as it's kind of refactoring and making it more robust, that's great. So yeah, I don't know. This might take a while. And this is I guess if it's a brand new toy app like this would be a good way to do it. It could probably one-shot it without all these skills. But that's kind of how I think about planning. I do a lot of dictation, so I use WhisperFlow for talking to my computer. WhisperFlow is just super accurate. I don't have to even check to see if it's correct. It's just always correct. But I find myself a lot of the time I'll say what I want and talk for I don't know, I've done for 5 or 10 minutes before, and just blabber and just give it, the more intent it has about what you actually want, the better your output is going to be. That's what I find. But yeah, so I created these skills to create and improve plans, implement them, and then review them. And that's great. It's my workflow has evolved over the last few months. But, this next part is super experimental, and I don't know, I wouldn't rely on it, but I think it's a cool idea, it's okay, if I can create an exec plan and it can execute easily for an hour or more, I don't know, and it can build something pretty complex, then what if you had an exec plan for exec plans? And the idea being, same thing, you just say, this is the type of app I want, or this is the type of feature I'm working on. And if you think that it might be too ambitious for one plan implementation. You can say, turn this into like basically five separate exec plans. And so what it does in this larger exec plan of exec plans, it creates these slices, like basically slices of work. So first what it'll do, so side thread, this is the iOS app I'm working on. Close the slices. It'll create a brief. So like at the higher level above where your plans are all written, there's this briefing document, and then there's like a little JSON document, or kind of just an artifact that's tracking where you are going through this meta plan. These are all conventions I just made up to make this happen. But what it does when you create the meta plan is it kind of gives a summary of the feature you want for each plan. And so you can imagine, I guess I'll just go create another Tetris example, because why not just rebuild Tetris 5 times? I want to build Tetris in HTML and CSS and JavaScript, make it super simple. Actually, I'm going to say super complex. Just because, so this time I'm going to create a meta plan. We'll see. I'm giving it so little context. I'm curious how it will decide to break this up. But the artifact we'll get in a moment is this briefing document, and then these slices, where each slice will be a separate exec plan. And so actually, before, like, I don't actually need to, well, if I'm totally vibe coding and I don't give a shit about what's about to be built like I'm about to, I can just, I can just do what I'm about to do. So I'll say, for slice 1, create an exec plan. There we go. Improve. A few improvements, implement, review. Oops, I have a sub-agent version of review, which I don't know about sub-agents. I'm not always confident in what they're doing. So that's the first slice. So then you can imagine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then I'll be like, for the next slice, create an exec plan, improve. So you can kind of see where I'm going. The idea is agents, when given the right scaffolding, can actually go for a really long time. And you can take projects that might seem daunting or impossible. Like, yeah, of course you're not going to do this if you work at a huge company and the code base is super important. But for a lot of us who are building side projects and just want to get off the ground, I think it's a really powerful primitive for this. One really cool thing, there's the Codex in the Mac app. There's a Codex CLI. And they do some stuff in the cloud where you can kick off cloud tasks. I almost never do that. But the idea is, under the hood, Codex it's the agent harness. And that agent harness is called Codex App Server. What's really cool about Codex App Server is it's open source. And actually, the coolest part about Codex App Server is you can sign in with your ChatGPT account. So if you're already paying OpenAI, you can build apps on an agent harness from OpenAI and have a little front-end button that says, sign in with ChatGPT. And it'll allow you to use tokens from your Codex account. So when I'm building LLM apps that need to do inference, I'm like, okay, am I really going to go use an API key from another provider or put it on my credit card? Why not just use my Codex tokens? So totally recommend Codex App Server. And the reason I brought that up is, so where we started was, discuss what you want, create a plan, improve it, implement, review. There's that kind of flow I just showed you. And then there's this higher level idea of a meta plan to make much longer running tasks. But in this example here, I only went to slice 2, but we're at 8 skill invocations or something like that. So if the meta plan had 5 slices with 8 each, are you really gonna, at a certain point when you're chaining 40 skills, you think there's gotta be a better way to do it. So what I created is called Slop Janitor. So Slop Janitor takes your AI slop and improves it. Actually, there are basically two modes to Slop Janitor. So there's one mode is what I just described, where you can create a meta plan and it'll execute the equivalent of like 40 skill invocations. So you just start a shell script, which boots up Codex app server, gives it a prompt, and you can put in flags like improvement passes. So I might put, do 5 improvement passes and then 5 review passes. But the general idea is to enable yourself to just put in, I don't know, like before you go to bed, put in a prompt, have it run for a few hours, and just take on more ambitious tasks. So that's Slop Janitor. I have one more thing, which is an update. If you've been to one of these meetups before, I think I deleted the skill because I found a better way. But similarly to the way where I was starting with a plan and then improving it and implementing it, I found sometimes if you just tell Codex, find a hidden bug, or you just give it a challenge. Find a bug in this app and fix it, or like find something that needs to be refactored here that would make the code easier to understand. It's really good at that. And so when I started just spinning a lot of tokens and building a lot of slop code, I realized I could do a similar thing, like find a refactor candidate. And what this one does is it'll look through my code base, it'll find something to refactor, and then surprise, the next thing you'll do is create a plan, improve the plan, whatever, implement. So this is something where when I've been using this find refactor candidates skill, so the first version of this, it was just find something to refactor and create a plan. But based on what I said before about like clarifying your intent, instead of just saying find the best thing to refactor, this one is find some candidates of something to refactor. So it'll generate a document here of refactor candidates, and it will, like you could pause it during this or say, oh no, do this one. But most of the time, I'll just say, find something to refactor, create the plan, improve it. And it's really cool because you're autonomously making your code base better. And I think the ability I'm trusting AI more and more and more over time, like it's making fewer mistakes. And I think for this type of thing, it can be really powerful. I have some stuff built into these skills. There's a guy named John Osterhout, I think is his name. He's a professor at Stanford, and just it's almost like clean code or one of these approaches to software engineering that's like, this is how you write great code. And so I put that into my agents.md file and into my skills to just always remind Codex, hey, think about software engineering kind of in this way. So that's most of my skill stuff, and Codex has so much new stuff, at least especially in the last few months. I'd highly recommend checking out, just looking into the settings if you haven't gone in there. All kinds of cool, they have some work. I think they're trying to compete with Cloud Cowork or something. I didn't get into work trees. I think someone's going to do that here. They just added computer use. Barely use that, browser use, so much cool stuff. One more thing I'm going to show, it's just a handy, I find this to be really handy, is when you come up with a plan or you're coming up with an idea of what to build, before building it, let's see if I should do it here. I guess I don't really, it's kind of fun to watch the demo of this, but I would say, I'm going to say, oh, that's one we've already built. I guess, have we built all these? Oh, no. OK. I don't really need to demo it. I think people are going to get into it. But the idea is just telling Codex to search the web. And specifically, I'll tell it to search the web using subagents. I'll say use 10 subagents and ensure that each one goes in a different direction. And so if you're like really brainstorming some high-level stuff or want to explore different architectures, telling Codex you have to specifically tell it to use subagents, and you can tell it how many. But telling it to use subagents and searching the web is it's kind of like a deep research query on ChatGPT. Last thing, new feature in Codex, they enabled memories. And so you can turn on memories here. You might have to enable it in your Codex configuration, or it might just be here, I'm not sure. But the idea is when you start a new thread, it's not just picking up from nothing, it's shoving some stuff into the context window.